It has been reported that an agreement has been reached to end the 107-day war between the United States and Iran. While the framework aims to reduce tensions in the region, critical questions regarding the content and implementation of the deal remain at the forefront of the agenda. We will discuss the details with Dr. Mustafa Caner, Middle East expert at SETA. Mr. Caner, thank you for accepting our interview. First of all, will Iran completely give up uranium enrichment? What will happen to Iran's current stockpile of highly enriched uranium?
Thank you for having me. There are several red lines posed by Iran, and uranium enrichment capacity was one of them. Iran sees its uranium activities as part of its national sovereignty. So it's really difficult for Iran to step back its nuclear commitments to its people. They always refer to their history. The people who have lost their lives in this determination and in this road to reaching 100% independence in nuclear cycle. So they always refer their scientists, their soldiers who lost their lives. So it's really difficult to retract from these commitments. However, Iran has accepted to dilute its highly enriched uranium, at least. So, as a matter of fact, transferring the uranium to another country such as Russia, China, or the United States is also a red line for Iran. They don't accept that either. But diluting the uranium to a level that wouldn't, allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon, it's acceptable. So, but this dilution activities, whether to take place in Iran or another country, it's also a matter of debate. But Iran will insist on doing that in its own soil. So one dimension of the subject is related to national sovereignty. Another dimension is open to negotiation or debate between Iran and other powers. But we haven't seen the final text of this MOU, so we are not certain about the articles, the terms and conditions of this agreement. We should wait until Friday, and then we can, speak about this, the nature of this agreement. But we can surely say that postponing the fundamental topics related to nuclear issue to 60-day period of negotiation after this MOU is a clear, let's say, concession for the US side, because the real and let's say the initial reason for waging this war against Iran, at least said by President Trump, was preventing Iran from a nuclear weapon. But now we are postponing this fundamental topic to discuss later in 60-day period after this MOU. So I think this is a major setback and major failure of the United States regarding Iran's nuclear activities.
In this scenario, who will emerge as the main winner? Has the United States achieved a strategic gain, or has Iran secured economy and diplomatic relief through easing sanctions? Or could this process in the long term open the door to a new power imbalance?
Sure, I think we will witness a newly emerging Middle Eastern order or disorder in the coming weeks, months, or maybe years. But speaking of winners and losers of this war, it's really difficult to talk about that right now because we haven't seen the final text of this MOU. And also, there's a long road to reach an everlasting ultimate peace deal, a comprehensive peace deal. So, without seeing the final version of the text of the agreement, we are not sure who win or who lost. But surely we have some, we have something to predict who is going to win or lose at the end of this game. When we consider Iran's strategic gains, because both sides have gains and losses, but Iran hasn't lost, at least. How to say that? Because the regime in Iran hasn't changed. That was the prior motivation for Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu at the initial phase of this war. They clearly said they were going to change the regime in Iran, but the regime stayed. Even though they lost their supreme leader, many commanders, scientists, really important figures such as Ali Larijani, they were able to, maintain the institutional character of the system. They demonstrated an institutional resilience, which has an important role in reaching this MOU. So clearly, Donald Trump gave up on regime in Iran. This is a gain for Iran, and also Iran showed that by using military force, an outside power is not able to change the behavior of Iranian state in the foreign policy area or in considering in terms of domestic politics. So it showed to us that Iran is really capable of defending its political system and military structure to an extent that it is able to conduct its own independent political and military decisions. So this is also another gain for Iran. Iran also was able to maintain state-society bond. I wouldn't say the bond is intact or really strong, but at least we haven't witnessed any major demonstrations or rallies or street protests against the government of Iran or the state of Iran in this process. So these are really important gains, and maybe most importantly, Iran showed that how it can use the Strait of Hormuz card effectively in determining the fate of this war. This is another aspect that we have seen in this war. So Iran has gained a lot. Of course, it suffered a lot in terms of infrastructure, its military capacity, so on and so forth. But these are political and geopolitical gains that I just mentioned, and these are really important. On the other side, the United States hasn't achieved its strategic objectives. So in this MOU, we don't see any clause, any article related to Iran's regional activities, its regional partners, Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen. There is no mentioning, and also Iran's missile program has been excluded from this MOU, and Iran was successfully able to include the Lebanese front in this MOU also. So the ceasefire should cover Lebanon. So this is also another point of victory for Iran. But on the other side, we are not able to see what really President Donald Trump achieved in this war.
So, how long will normalization in the Strait of Hormuz take? Will securing maritime trade and energy flows take weeks, or are we heading into a new period of monitoring that will last months?
I think there is no technicality here, I mean, technical problem that would prevent the strait to, go back its pre-war condition. However, it really depends on how parties will reassure the international community, companies, have tankers, ships passing through Strait of Hormuz carrying, critical materials, including oil and other materials. So it really depends on how parties will honor the agreement. Are they going, withdraw, or are they going to go until the end to the extent that until the permanent peace agreement. So if they really are willing to achieve a lasting peace, of course, it will signal the parties that I just mentioned, international, firms, trading companies, and they will continue their normal activities in a short period of time. I think it will not, exceed a month. There is no technical problem here, but we should also consider that there are potential spoilers such as Israel. If Israel keeps attacking, then we have a really fragile agreement now. And this agreement is really susceptible to outside impacts potentially coming from Israel and its destabilizing activities in Lebanon, because Lebanon is a red line for Iran. And if the ceasefire doesn't cover Lebanon, Iran made it clear that it will not abide by this MOU also. So there will be no permanent peace agreement. So it really depends on the balances on the field and how will parties honor their commitments and how they honor the agreement.
So, the Lebanon dimensions of the agreement also stands out as a critical issue. However, Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu said that we will continue to remain in Lebanon. As tensions on the ground persist, how will the diplomatic process be affected? Does this statement undermine the regional credibility of the agreement, and could it trigger the risk of a new front opening?
I think all these possibilities are on the table, and Lebanon is a really critical point here. And if Israel really, is willing to stay in Lebanon, then we have a problem. And it really depends on President Donald Trump, you know, how he is going to stop Netanyahu from showing additional aggressions inside Lebanon. So in order this ceasefire, this agreement to hold, Israel should be stopped. If Israel continues its invasion, its attacks, its destabilizing activities, it is depopulating areas in southern Lebanon. So basically, the same logic applies here as they did and they keep doing in Gaza. So what they did in Gaza, now they are doing it in Lebanon. So the same logic, and that's why Israel should be stopped, or we will have another catastrophe, another genocide in Lebanon. Because until now, almost 4,000 people died because of Israeli attacks. So Israel should be stopped in Lebanon, or we have a serious problem and it has a real potential to spread across the region. It will not be limited in Lebanon. That's why it's really important for President Donald Trump, if he wants to preserve this agreement, if he wants to reach a really, permanent peace with Iran and, provide the region with stability and peace, he really should stop Netanyahu and Israeli cabinet.
So, can this agreement truly turn into a lasting peace? What do you think?
I think it has a real potential to translate into a lasting peace. Of course, there are also some damaging factors, there are also negative sides, weak spots in this agreement. But I am pretty optimistic because given the fact that all regional actors except Israel accepted this agreement, welcomed this agreement, and we really have to pay a close attention to the bloc, a diplomatic bloc, just emerged in the region, consists of Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Qatar. These actors really have contributed MOU positively. They prevented this war spreading across the region. They, halted Trump's additional attacks. They were, really successful in, stopping these attacks from happening in the region. And also, I should also mention Turkey's really successful efforts in keeping Saudi Arabia out of this war, because Saudis have been targeted with missiles and drones from Iran, but Turkey has been really, successful in persuading Saudi officials not to answer back militarily against Iran. Because if it did happen, then we would have a really, a regional war, and that would be, out of control. Nobody could control that war. So I think Turkey did achieve a lot in this regard. So when considering these regional powers, and of course we should also mention Pakistan's great efforts as a mediator, and other international organizations also welcomed this agreement. So when seeing these examples, when viewing the situation through this prism, we have a lot of reason to be optimistic about it. But I just mentioned the spoiler factor, namely Israel, and Israel isn't stopped, then we will have a serious problem again.
Mr. Caner, thank you for your valuable responses.
Thank you for having me.